Today we're going to discuss the Knight coat of arms. But before we get started, we wanted to let you know that we offer genealogy research service at our website. Please visit us at coadb.com. Or 3 bendlets azure on a chief gules, a civic crown between 2 spurs of the first, crest on a Roman fasces lying fessewise, a spur rowel or between 2 wings displayed gules. Coat of arms and crest of Henry Edmund Knight, born 1833, depicted here, who was the Lord Mayor of London. Next we have Argent 2 roses in fess gules, seated or barbed vert on a canton azure, a spur of the third, crest, a spur or between 2 wings argent, each charged with a rose as in the arms. Confirmed in 1871 to Richard Goold Knight of Santa Cruz in the West Indies, a planter and later a member of the Colonial Office. He was also of Cloncorrick Castle in Leitrim, Ireland, and it was granted to the descendants of his grandfather, Joseph Knight of Kilcorby in Cavan, Ireland. Here we see the aforementioned Cloncorrick Castle. Sable on a fess argent, 3 quatrefoils of the field, in chief a nag's head erased to the second, crest a goat's head erased per fess gules and or, attired gold, holding in the mouth a laurel sprig vert. For the Knights of Baldick and Weston in County Hertfordshire. Richard Knight, born 1525, son of Henry Knight, and the father of Henry, Edward, John, and Richard Knight. Argent on a fess between 3 mullets azure, a boar's head erased of the first, for the Knight family of Oulton Corsby in Scotland, belonging to Thomas Knight, the provost of Ayrshire, in 1672. Argent, a griffin sagrant proper, armed in lagood gules, and chief 2 stars azure, crest, a ship under sail in sea proper. For the Knight family of Jordanston and Dundee, Admiral Sir John Knight, born 1747, served in the American and French Revolutionary Wars and was tutor to Prince William. He was born in Dundee, Scotland, the son of Rear Admiral Joseph Knight. And here we see the aforementioned Jordanstown House, family estate. Gules, a chevron or between 3 buckles or, for the Knight or McKnight family of Danestown in County Dublin, Ireland. Argent, a canton gules Argent, a chevron gules on a canton of the last, a spur with rowels down, all or. Born by Edward Knight of Westmeath, Ireland, who had daughter Martha, who married into the Percival family around the turn of the 18th century. Argent, 2 pallets azure on a canton gules, a spur buckle and strap or. Argent, 3 bendlets gules on a canton azure, a spur rowel downwards of the first. Knight of Kingerby in Lincolnshire, William Knight of Snareford purchased Kingerby Hall in 1702 and was the 3rd son of Richard Knight of Normanby on the Hill. Also by the Knights of Belly and Barrels in County Warwickshire. They descended from Nicholas Knight, alive in the year 1484, who had son Robert Knight, who had sons Nicholas, William, Thomas, and Ralph. Here we see Knight of Banbury in County Oxfordshire. And I have a note here that says there was a Bezaleel Knight of Oxford who was granted arms around the year 1640. Granted in 1841 to Sir Arnold James Knight, medical doctor, founded the Sheffield Medical Institution and was the son of Alexander Knight of Six Hills Grange. Another for Knight of Dalesford and of Southmead in County Gloucester, born by Jacob Knight, who purchased the Dalesford estate in 1715, which we see here. Argent, 3 pales gules on a canton of the second, a spur and leather or, a crest out of a mule coronet, argent, and eagle volant or. Granted in 1668 to Francis Knight of Mitcham in County Surrey, Sir John Knight of Bristol, Fitzherbert, and Isaac Knight. And there was George Knight, the mayor of Bristol, who was granted arms in 1652, and was the father of at least Francis and Sir John. This one with a border engrailed azure, and crest on a ducal coronet, and eagle displayed all o'er, for the Knight family of Congressbury in Somerset, Sir John Knight of the Hill, Bristol, and Congressbury, member of Parliament who died in 1718 and was the son of John Knight, a sugar refiner. Also associated with Hampshire, granted to someone there in 1523, and associated with Norfolk, and I have a note here saying there was a John Knight who was a member of the gentry in that county in 1433. Knight of Shrewsbury and Bastchurch in Shropshire, Thomas Knight of Walford in Bastchurch and Shrewsbury, a member of Parliament who died in 1519 and was the son of Roger Knight, bailiff of Shrewsbury, and the nephew of Henry Knight, clerk of the signet ring. Also by the Knights of Wolverley in Worcestershire and Simonsbath in Devonshire. They descended from Richard Knight of Castle Green and Madley in County Shropshire. He acquired an ironworks and made a fortune, and was the son of John Knight of Little Stretton, and had son Richard Knight of Downton Castle in County Hertfordshire, which we see here. Knight of Ruscombe in County Berkshire, granted in 1670 to Nathan Knight, a barrister of Lincoln's Inn, who inherited Ruscombe through marriage, and the estate was later sold in the 18th century by William Walter Knight. Knight of the Manor House, Glenparva in County Leicestershire, England. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Knight, born 1803, a Justice of the Peace and Deputy Lieutenant, and the only son of Samuel Knight of Edmonton in Middlesex, and his wife Anne, daughter of Joseph Knight of Charterhouse Square in London. And he himself had sons Gregory Knight and Joseph Guy Knight. Another here with or instead of argent. Argent on a canton gules, a spur leathered or, rowel downwards within a border sable, found in County Hampshire and predates the year 1730. Argent on a canton gules, a spear and bend or for a knight of Worcestershire, England. Or a border engrailed sable. Vert, a bend lozenge or. Crest, a demi-friar holding a lantern in one hand and a rosary in the other, his gown or cape and hood argent, belonging to Edmund Knight, the Norrie King of Arms in the year 1592. Similar coat of arms and crest granted to Arthur Knight of London, a haberdasher alive in the year 1634, and to his brother, Stephen Knight, sons of John Knight of Essex, and who was the son of William Knight of Kent. Thomas Knight, Esquire, Chester Herald in the year 1617. Knight of Chowton in County Hampshire, granted in 1738, assuming to Thomas Broadneck's May Knight, who inherited the house in the same year. Chowton House was built by John Knight, a member of Parliament for Lymington in the 1590s, and High Sheriff of Hampshire, on land acquired previously by one Nicholas Knight, and later there was Sir Richard Knight of Chowton, born 1639, a member of Parliament for Lymington. Here we see Chowton House, the family estate. Quarterly coat of arms with Austin for Knight of Godmersham in Kent. Thomas Knight of Godmersham had son Thomas Knight, who sat in the House of Commons and had no children, and passed the Godmersham Park estate to Edward Austin of Rolling, who then assumed the surname Knight, becoming Edward Austin Knight. And here we see Godmersham Park in Kent. One associated with London, another quarterly coat of arms with Austin. One associated with Knight of County Middlesex. Sable A. Griffin, Sagren Ermine, beaked and armed gules, a border of the second for Knight of Buckinghamshire, dates to the 1500s or earlier. Sable A. Griffin, Sagren Or, Crest, a Talbot's Head, erased Sable Byzanti for Knight of Gloucester and Yorkshire. Wasn't able to find any association with either of those counties, but it was borne by Stephen Knight of Northampton, found in a document dated around the year 1510. And the shield itself was borne by Dr. Jonathan Knight of Norwich, Connecticut, born 1758, the son of Phineas Knight, who descended from Richard Knight, born 1623. Or a chevron sable, 3 griffins, Sagren of the Field, crest out of a ducal coronet, or an eagle displayed ermine, Knight of County Hampshire, found quartered with the surname Bedwell. One possibility here is Richard Knight of St. Denis, who was granted arms in 1583. Or a chief sable, 3 griffins, Sagren of the Field, crests, and eagle displayed or for Knight of Langold in County Yorkshire, granted in 1666 to Ralph Knight of Langold and of Langwith in Nottingham, a member of Parliament, the son of William Knight, and the father of John, Isaac, and Ralph Knight. Per chevron engrailed sable and argent, 3 griffins passant counterchange for the Knight family of Westerham in County Kent, granted in 1662 to Michael Knight of Westerham, the son of Christopher Knight of Cudham in County Kent. Same coat of arms with the crest for Knight of Southampton in County Hampshire, granted in 1539 to William Knight of Southampton in County Hampshire, collector of the subsidies. Argent a fess gules ready or between 3 bulls' heads erased sable attired of the third for Knight of London in Clerkenwell and Middlesex. Granted in 1664 to Henry Knight of Clerkenwell, a citizen of London, a brewer by trade, and the son of Richard Knight of Loughton in County Bedfordshire. Argent on a fess between 3 bulls' heads erased, sable, and ringed of the nose, a fret between 2 doves of the field. For Knight of the Who in Southampton, Thomas Knight of Who, clerk of the signet and under treasurer of the mint, granted in 1566. Also granted in 1565 to William Knight of Althorpe in County Northampton, the brother of Thomas of Who. And granted in 1546 to Thomas Knight of Hull in County Northampton. So this is either the same Thomas Knight of Who or an entirely different person. Another coat of arms granted in 1514 by Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire to William Knight, who was ambassador to the Holy Roman Empire for England, and he was afterwards made Bishop of Bath and Wells. Paley of 6 ore and gules, a canton ermine for the Knight family of Brockhole in County Northampton. Gules 2 bars, Argent and chief 3 wolves' heads erased of the second for Knight of Piddington in Northampton. Edward Knight, alive in the year 1618, son of Edward Knight, both of Piddington, son of Thomas Knight of Emerton in County Buckinghamshire. Azure on a fess ore between 3 fishes, herring and argent, as many rows as gules, crest and arm cooped, habited bendy of 4 ore and azure, holding in the hand proper the lower half of a fish cooped in the middle of the second. Azure 3 Cornish chose in fess argent on a chief ore, as many tortu. Argent a helmet gules. Sable 3 lions' heads erased ore, crest a demi-lion rampant ore, for the McKnight family of Scotland. Thomas McKnight of Ratho, son of Reverend William McKnight, minister of Irvine, who died in the year 1750. Sable and in escutcheon checky argent and azure between 3 lions' heads erased argent, crest a lion's head erased gules. This coat of arms was found quartered with the families of Coulthard, Ross, and Glendonham. Quarterly, 1st and 4th argent, a dexter arm issuing from the sinister, holding a crosslet 50 gules. 2nd and 3rd argent, a tower sable masoned of the 1st. Crest, a tower sable masoned argent for the McKnight family. And on this slide, we have in green some members of the family who are granted coat of arms who we weren't able to pair up with one on the other slides. Humphrey Knight of the City of London was granted in arms. John Knight of Charwelton was granted in arms in 1613. John Knight, surgeon, granted 1661. John Knight of London, Receiver General of Customs, granted in 1710. Richard Knight and his uncle, Richard Knight, both of Cowden in Kent, granted in 1671. Robert Knight of Bromley in Kent, granted in 1548. And in blue here we have some crests we were able to identify, but we weren't able to pair them up with the proper escutcheon. Knight of Charlecote, an esquire's helmet. Knight of Canton, Hampshire, on a mural coronet or a buck sagent, and so on and so forth. One from Ireland, pretty interesting, on a chapeau sable turned up argent, a serpent naud, spotted vert. And all the information from these slides will be in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, please visit us at coadb.com, where we offer genealogy research service, high resolution digital JPEGs, and heraldic merchandise. Link in the description. Thank you very much.